think we're on. You ready? Should we do this? We'll do this. Welcome, Dream Team, to a very special show as far as Good Bad Rugby is concerned. We're coming live to you from the O2 as the dust settles on the announcement of the 2025 British and Irish Lions Tour to Australia. A fantastic squad, some big names in, one or two potentially who are on that standby list should unfortunate things happen to others. But we've got a lot to pick through over the course of the next hour or so. We're going to hear from the coach, Andy Farrell, and from the new captain, Maro Itoje, as well. Before we do that, we would like to say a big thank you to our sponsors, which are, of course, the principal partner of the British and Irish Lions, the global insurance brokers Howden. So thank you to them for making this show possible. And as I said, we have got a lot to get through, which we're going to do alongside, I think, probably one of the best analysts in the game. I think you've probably watched these players in action more than almost anyone else on planet Earth. Austin might have something to say on that, but
he doesn't work as hard as me.
That's very true. Yeah. We'll give you the credit for that. It's, of course, the World Cup winner of 2003 in Australia and a British and Irish Lions tourist in 2005, I think it was, Ben Kay. First things first, we're going to go through the squad. There's a lot to get through, but can we just take a big step back and just look at what we've experienced here today? Because rugby's had a bit of a battering over the last, well, you pick the number, 2 or 3 years, should we say? I don't know about you. We're getting into the realms of wizened old hacks and that sort of side of the fence. I think today has been energetic, it's been fun, it's been entertaining, it's been sort of compulsive viewing. It's been a really good day to be a rugby fan.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. The build-up, as is always the case with the Lions, who's going to be in it? Even back from probably the Autumn Nations series every Lions year, people are discussing, well, this is a Lions trial, who's going to be in it? We've all got our firm opinions by the time this day comes around. But in terms of the way it's been organised at the O2, you know, a few people saying, well, they're charging this much for a ticket. I can't believe that, but it was sold out. Yep. 2,000 people turned up, and you know, the actual delivery of it was, you know, we're sort of thinking of this as the rugby's answer to the NFL draft, aren't we? Yeah. Like, everyone's been talking about who'll go, who won't go. Big live studio audience. We get some reaction from the players, which is lovely to see. Yep. And I think what makes it extra special is the fact that the coach, the captain, delivered. You know, you can see why they're in those positions. Andy Farrell's such an approachable guy, just has that calm head of belief about what's ahead of him, and he's picked a captain that I think is going to be ideal for the Lions because, you know, almost even more so than England captain, the Lions, you have all the extra roles, which Maro Itoje, to the manner born, you know, he's almost a politician already, isn't he? And he's going to be brilliant at that.
It's going to be a lot of fun to watch what unfolds, of course, as the squad head down to Australia. And Maro certainly looks and feels very much the part on day one as captain. A couple of just sort of quick snapshot reactions. As the squad was announced, were you sort of knowingly nodding, or were you thinking, God, one or two surprises? What was your overall
one or two surprises. Obviously, when Maro was announced, we wondered about Caelan Doris because he's got an injury. So I think if you look at a lot of those selections, anyone who was on an injury list hasn't really been included.
Yeah. Matt Hansen maybe.
Matt Hansen maybe, but you know, as a tourist, what a great guy to come in and you know, you'd want that sort of person on a Lions tour, definitely. There's a few, Jamie George not being there, and Luke Cowan-Dickie getting the nod.
Dowie Lake possibly.
Dowie Lake could have been in there. So that was a position that I went, oh, right, okay, that's what he's going with. Yeah. But there were a few omissions, but nothing crazy. And then there was a big rumour circling around here that he was going to pick Owen Farrell, and that didn't come about. And actually, regardless of the right and wrong reasons of it, thank God he didn't. And that's not to say Owen might not play a part in the tour, but I think it would have changed the whole narrative of today, and all the media coverage would have been about Owen Farrell. And now I think the Lions walk away from this place with a lot of credit in the bank.
He wasn't born yesterday, Andy Farrell, was he? I think he knows how to play the game, and it will be very interesting to see, because inevitably, unfortunately for some, there are going to be injuries. There might well be one or two who are sort of in and around the area should they be needed. Would you have Owen on that list? I don't want to start with him because there's so many others, but he does generate headlines.
I've said this for a while, actually, and obviously, you know, he's been injured. He's not played his best season. And coming back, you know, this weekend was a big weekend for him. He got a head injury, so he couldn't continue on and prove what he can do. But if the week before the first test, either Finn Russell or Finn Smith goes down, or even one of the centres, and you want to parachute someone into a Lions tour with a bit of experience, because coming into that environment fresh is difficult. I don't think there's anyone better than Owen Farrell to walk in, and not just from how he would perform, but how everyone else would react to him walking through the door.
Yeah.
So I don't think the door's shut on Owen Farrell, but you look at the 3 10s he has picked,
yep,
and they're all attacking players, which you wondered, to go up against Australia, that's their style of game, and then that's then affected some of the back row choices, and you know, he's picked loads of locks,
yep,
but Tygburn and Ollie Chess can both play 6, but not many number 8s. So maybe you're thinking, well, 2 7s alongside a big tall 6, and is that alluding to the fact that we're going to play a bit, and we don't want to get undone by Australia at the breakdown?
Just quickly, because we will go through the squad. I'm sure you've seen it by now. We'll recap it for you. But the biggest, I'm not going to say gasp, but the biggest came after the name
Henry Pollock. The biggest cheer.
Amazing.
Which is great.
Yeah.
3 months ago he was well, this kid looks quite good.
Yeah.
Oh, shame the Lions is in 3 months, because we want to see what he can do. Got his chance with England, and you hear some of the Northampton players being interviewed, and he's got a certain style about his persona, hasn't he? Like, particularly when he was under-20s captain, how he was on some of the things off the field and on the field, and how he celebrates. But the Northampton players were walking around the England squad apparently saying, no, give him a chance, he's a really good bloke. Yeah. He has exploded onto the scene, and is one of the best talents I can remember coming through. Now, he's obviously on a rich vein of form, on fire. That performance at the Aviva last week against Leinster.
Do you think it was in the balance until that game, or do you think he'd done enough? I mean, there are moments when players change their destiny.
I think the majority of that squad was in the balance. You know, I genuinely think he hadn't fully decided, which is why the squad hadn't got out, hadn't leaked. I think he thought of him that he might be going, but then that was the only solution he could come to after that performance. But there are certain players. So the cycle of a Lions Tour or the World Cup, often players just peak at the right time, and if you don't take them, so someone texted me afterwards, said a rising tide lifts all boats, and it's that person that's on fire. Suddenly, even though he's only 20, you're wanting to play alongside him, and I could see him at the moment being a bench, on the test bench, because he's got that proven record in the last year of coming off the bench, be it for Northampton or for England, and scoring tries. And having that energy coming off the bench would be pretty good.
And just to get back to your point around the reaction of the 2,000 people that were in there, and I think it probably is fair to say that it was the biggest cheer. I was trying to think of other, certainly English players, but certainly Northern Hemisphere players who have generated that.
I'll tell you exactly who I thought. Oh, go on.
No, you go. You go.
Well, it probably is the same one, for slightly different reasons, but before this announcement, I was thinking there's a shade to when Jason Robinson came in 2001. Yeah. And then his performances on the tour where he... Yes. People forget because of how great Jason Robinson was as a rugby league player, but also how great he turned out to be as a rugby union player. Yes. But that Lions tour was his first exposure to union, really. His first real big stage in union. He scored 5 tries in one game. And people go, wow. Now, obviously, a very different position, Henry Pollock. But it's that sort of, God, this guy's a bit of an unknown. Is Andy Farrell sure he's right to have picked him? And then suddenly, potentially, could go there, have a moment like that. Even look, again, I'm comparing Henry Pollock to Lions legends, but even the effect of Brian O'Driscoll on that tour, when he made that break. Now, because of what Brian achieved later on in his career, we sort of think, oh, well, he was always doing that. And the Irish boys knew he could do that. Yep. But no one had seen it in the Test arena, really, until the 2001 Lions. The one
I was thinking of, just very quickly, and I suppose the difference was Jason got everybody off their feet in the stadium. But I was thinking of rugby players that generated mass sort of hysteria. I was thinking of when you arrived back in 03.
James Haskell. Oh, no.
Sadly and thankfully, he's nothing to do with today's production. He would tell you that it was him. There was probably a flash around Cipriani, but that was only a moment of time. I was thinking when you guys arrived back in 03 into Heathrow, and I was a 21-year-old or whatever it was, and I remember Johnny coming out of that terminal And there were, but you will know better than 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 people at 4 in the morning to welcome you back. It's not often you get English rugby players who generate mass kind of excitement away from Twickenham or their ground.
I think the difference there was that Johnny had already cemented himself
for sure.
as England's best player and the star going into that tournament. So that's the only difference. I also think that
kicking a drop
looking at Henry Pollock and how he behaves is very, very different to Johnny Wilkinson's personality.
Right.
And I think he's going to thrive on that. Now, I guess the worry about him would be, will keep his mind on the job and make sure that it doesn't all go to his head, whereas Johnny was the opposite. He didn't want him to go into his shell too much because of all the pressure that was on him, and he didn't really like the limelight. I get the impression Henry Pollock quite likes the limelight.
Quite likes it. Again, we've got one or two of those around this part of the world who quite enjoy the limelight as well. So listen, let's go through. We're going to go through block by block. I do just quickly want to say, if you want to get involved, we'd love to hear your thoughts, your comments, etc. Drop those under the line. And if you'd like to like and subscribe, please do just that as well. But should we go through position by position, and we'll just recap and just to sort of give us your sort of snapshot reaction, I suppose, Ben. So in the props, we've got Zander Fagerson, Ty Furlong, brilliant. I don't know if you've seen the brilliant footage as Ellis Genge was announced down at Bristol, proper mobbing for Genji down there. Andrew Porter, who obviously was selected in 2021 but didn't make it because of injury. Piers Schoeman, who I think could well become a cult figure. And Will Stewart, whose star has really shone throughout the course of the Six Nations. Happy with that?
I am. The only one who I think's very unlucky, but I couldn't tell you who you'd replace in the squad is Nikki Smith from Wales and Leicester, who's just been incredible all year. And let's not forget, one of the stars last time they were in Australia wasn't there originally. Alex Corbisiero, and came in and almost won Man of the Series. I don't think he quite did, but he was that good. Scored the try that won the test. So there's still place, but you look at he's got a massive problem to select. Out of that is some quality.
Do you want to? Let's come back to who you think sort of might be being penciled in at this point. In wearing two, Luke Cowan-Dickie, Ronan Kelleher, and Dan Sheehan. I don't think too many arguments about Dan Sheehan. Probably is the first name in that department. Jamie George we've mentioned, and Dowie Lake as well. But can you see why he's gone with a blend of Sheehan and Kelleher, who obviously know each other extremely well, and Luke Cowan-Dickie?
Well, he said he had a long list of 70. And there are no bad players in that list, are there? I thought because there are limited players in that squad that have been on a Lions tour, or if they've been on a Lions tour, it was South Africa, which is very different to any other Lions tour because of COVID. And so you haven't got oodles of experience. I think quite a lot of us thought Jamie George, former England captain, might make it in there. I can see why he's gone with those guys, and obviously Dowie Lake as well. So
Theo Dan might be the other one if you're looking for game changer, but possibly not.
No, absolutely. But I think Cowan-Dickie was miles away a year ago, and he fully deserves his place now.
I saw somebody put out on, I think it was social media or one of the papers, just the tap tackle in Wales, and it's amazing how sometimes just little moments and little plays tell you so much.
But it's also balance within a squad. I saw Maro before we started this, and there's a bit of leaving your ego at the door, and players that have been renowned for a certain thing, they might not be occupying that role. It's like the old Chicago Bulls when they brought Jordan alongside Rodman and Scottie Pippen. Suddenly those guys that were brilliant had to bow. No, Michael does that in this team. You're doing this. So. But also having, Luke Cowan-Dickie is a destructive tackler. So if you've got other players on the pitch that want to run around and play a bit, you want to make sure you've got that balance. Now, you've got a fair few decent ball playing props in that team, so you might need someone to do some of the clearing up work.
What a glamorous job it is. Second row, your area of expertise, Tyke Byrne of Ireland, Ollie Chesham, who I think came off in Cardiff, injured, didn't he? It's good to see, obviously, that he's made it through. Scott Cummings, Maro Itoje, as you know, Joe McCarthy, and James Runn. I suppose the one name that we haven't mentioned, who potentially could have gone in as lock or second row, is Courtney Laws. But again, I mean, you've got variety in there as well.
As I said earlier, there's a lot of locks there, which makes me think that two of those are 5.5, 6s in the top two, so Byrne and Chesham. McCarthy and Ryan actually, they've probably a year ago they were nailed on, and then they were thought, well, which one's he going to take out of the two? So they've done well to get there, but equally, how are the Lions going to play? There's a bit of weight and size in those names: Cummins, Itoje, McCarthy, Ryan.
Yeah.
So are they going to? They'll want to play a bit because of the 10s that they've picked, but equally they're going to want to make sure that they dominate up front.
Yeah. Good pedigree in the back row as well. So Jack Conan, Tom Curry, Ben Earl, Josh van der Fleer, who makes his first tour, Jack Morgan of Wales, who found out on the plane from Johannesburg down to Durban, I think took a bit of a mobbing as they came into land. Henry Pollock, as we've mentioned already, and that therefore means that the likes of Courtney Laws, Sam Underhill, perhaps Jamie Ritchie and Rory Darge are probably still in contention, probably going to be given a few kept up to speed, etc. But in some ways I think the back row blend is almost the most interesting. Yeah,
but also I think, if you look at a lot of the positions, centre's another one that you've got multiple players of a similar makeup, so that if one of them gets injured, you don't have to completely change the way you're playing as a result. There's people that can swap into each other's roles. You look at all of those, Ben Earl, Van der Fleer, Morgan, Pollock, Earl, even Curry to some extent. They're all a similar style of player.
Yeah.
And then you got Conan, that's perhaps more of a bigger ball-carrying number 8/6, whereas the other guys really, you'd say, are sort of converted 7s.
Yeah. The one name obviously that's not there is Caelan Doris, and you've got to sort of just stop and tip the cap to the man, haven't you?
Oh, look, heartbreaking, and that we might still lose even more, and that's the problem, that the season's still going on.
Yeah.
People are going to pick up knocks and injuries. You just wonder how bad it is and whether there's a doorway back in. I think he's having surgery to have an exploratory operation to look, and let's hope that he's fit enough that if one of those guys that has been named doesn't make it to the end, he can come back in.
It's been done before, 4 years ago. I'm not sure many thought Alan Wynne-Jones would make it back to take his place in the Test Series. Scrum halves: Jamison Gibson-Park, Alex Mitchell and Thomas Williams. Nice interview with him at the announcement. So Ben White would be the one potentially who could have been in the mix.
They probably would have been my 3.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of Ben White, obviously ex-Leicester, but a guy that came through the ranks and really impressed me with his leadership. Yeah. I just wonder where he plays his rugby has affected the decision, and Thomas will be available from the start. Well, potentially pretty much from the start. I think they're meeting slightly earlier than the Premiership final, but I think that's fair enough. Thomas has. Although the Six Nations didn't go particularly well for him, he has been on absolute fire on a pack that's going forward for Gloucester.
It could be a very, very big tour for him. And actually, now that you've mentioned the French angle as well, Jack Willis might be another who, if it's very, very tight, the fact that he's probably got some big rugby to come might count against him as well? Or do you think that the others have done enough?
Definitely think that's come into the equation, but also how stacked his position was anyway.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a big call to ignore some of those names that have been picked, particularly if he can't be there for the first 3 weeks of the tour.
Yeah. At 10, Marcus Smith, Finn Russell. So therefore no Owen Farrell, as we've touched on. Sam Prendergast probably will be feeling that over in Ireland. And Jack Crowley, another name potentially, as in comes the man of the moment. Well done, Skipper. Very nice to see you. I know you've already been chatting a bit earlier on as well.
So you've replaced tins and hats.
We've upgraded for today. What panel? What a show this could be, Maro, when the time is right.
Yeah.
Well done, you. There are special days in life, and then there are pretty special days in life. When you were doing your teeth this morning, looking into the mirror, you were thinking to yourself, "This is a pretty good day."
No, to be honest, it's all a little bit surreal. Seeing the vibe, seeing the energy, the attention. Is one of those days that I've really tried to savor. Obviously, in a few weeks when we get going, the proper work will start then. But it's just been a very surreal day.
You found out on Tuesday. Apparently, there was obviously quite an intermittent announcement, obviously from Andy for you. But when you put the phone down, where were you? Are you allowed to? Have you actually genuinely kept it to yourself? Have you told those closest to you?
I was on the phone to Andy. He called me as literally I just got back from training. I walked into my house and I was walking up the stairs. I saw the number, picked it up, and we're having the conversation. As Andy said, it was in, it was out, in, it out. Eventually, we got to it. He asked me the question. I said yes. I then sat. I have a little bench next to my bed. I sat on my bench. And I looked a little bit subdued, and my fiancée was sitting on the bed. And I looked at her, and she was like, "Why are you looking at me like that?" Then I was like,
"You do know we're live. We can't tidy this up for you afterwards, Maro. You're digging a hole."
Then I was like, "Yeah, I've just been asked to be the Lions captain." Then she was like, "Oh." So yeah, then I told my mum, dad, brother, sister. Then I tried to keep it as tight as possible thereafter.
Have the other players at Saracens been questioning you? Because clearly you might think that the coach might ring. Have they been saying, "Come on, let us know"?
Yeah. So on Monday, it was my brother's wedding. My brother got married on Monday.
Congratulations.
So congratulations, Jeremy.
Good
well
week
done.
for the
Well,
Itoje
yeah,
family.
Christ alive, yeah.
So I asked Mark McCall if I could have the afternoon session off so I can attend the wedding. He said yeah. And meanwhile, unbeknownst to me, there was a group of people who were like, "There is no way Maro's going to a wedding. There is no way. He's not going to a wedding. Who gets married on a Monday?" Like, fair enough, not many people do. But I had to show video evidence. Like, look, I actually did go to a wedding. he did
AI can get you out of all sorts of trouble nowadays.
So yeah, after that, loads of people were questioning me, and I just had but up until Tuesday, I generally haven't heard anything. I had no idea. Didn't have any inside track or anything. So, yeah.
We saw the footage of you going in for dinner last night. It's not quite the sort of Green Jackets dinner post-Masters, but tell us a little bit about that. And was it a good night? They shut the door, locked the door, and Lions picked up the tab?
Yeah. It was a great night. It was one of those real surreal moments. Like, I'm having dinner with most of the captains of the Lions from the professional era. Gavin Hastings, I was sitting next to Gavin Hastings. That was my first time really interacting with him and spending time with him. And he was telling me there's more people who've gone to the moon than who've captained the Lions.
That's amazing.
Then I was like, I don't even know if that's true or not, but
it's a great stat.
It's a great story if it is. But I was like, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just a real surreal experience.
Because I always think that the guys that are already there, that's a little bit awkward, isn't it? Like, you're almost expected to give some advice. Did anyone give you any advice?
Well, Gavin Hastings asked Alan Wynne to give me advice, and Alan Wynne flat out refused. He's like, no, I'm not giving you any advice. You're fine. You'll be good. But I think all of the words that they probably came back to was, one, offering their support if I needed to chat through anything, if I wanted to chat through anything. They were all open and willing to help. And a lot of it was in around just like trusting yourself, trusting your gut, trusting the people that you value who are around you, and you'll be all right.
Was it Downing Street last week? Or was Downing Street 2 weeks ago?
Sometime.
Not long ago. Today it's obviously the O2. In a few weeks it's the MCG. You're playing some quite big gigs at the moment. And just, I mean, you have been a long time coming. I can remember, I think captaining England under 18, under 20 up in Newcastle was the first time I mean, it's been a long time coming. We've been on the scene for a long time. Are you able to actually stop and enjoy, not just today, but the whole run? Are you loving life, or is it just, are you doing the whole another game, another week, are part of the process?
Yeah, ever since COVID was like the break point where we were forced to stop, and like I did a real like reflection piece there, and ever since then I've always like promised myself like you need to take stock and like really appreciate things when they come, because once the moment's gone, the moment's gone. So ever since then I've tried to appreciate things a lot more whilst they're happening. Obviously you need to keep moving forward. Obviously you don't want to rest on your laurels, but I think it's also important to to appreciate the time you're in and be present. And so I do try. Rugby sport is such a fast-moving thing that you can't stay stationary for too long. But yeah, I definitely do try.
You've mentioned a couple of years ago there was an undiagnosed health condition and things, and you said yourself it affected your performances. Was there any time in those sort of darker moments of not knowing what's going on when you thought, I might be done, I'm not even going to play in here?
No, absolutely. I had a we do this thing at Saracens called My Story, where you talk about some of the trials and tribulations that you've had, and I told them when I was going through that period, I probably would have seen out my contract, then I most likely would have retired, because I just felt a bit like a fraud. I felt like my brain is telling me to do something and I'm not quite able to do it. My body's not matching up. I just thought I was getting old. I thought maybe this was
waiting to be done.
Maybe this is just the natural aging process. And when I was relieved when I got the diagnosis and all that kind of stuff, and I was able to put together a plan that could do it, because I probably wouldn't still be playing rugby, because I ultimately, would have been dropped from Saracens, dropped from England, because there's only so long you can, sometimes the credit in the bank is overdraft, and you can't really use it anymore. So that would have eventually happened to me.
I tell you what, you're where you want to be right now. Did you get to see the squad before today's announcement? Did you have a couple of picks?
I tried to get a proper eyes on the squad, but I got a couple names, but I wasn't able to get the full squad.
So you were watching it unfold as the race, sort of picking names out here and there.
I didn't know a lot of them. There was a few I did, but most of which I didn't.
The biggest cheer, obviously, after you came out, was for Henry Pollock. I just want to ask you, as a man who's carried the Lion in, 8 years ago to New Zealand, Bill is back.
Bill is bigger.
He's getting bigger every time.
That's a bigger Lion than you had, right?
It's like 2 or 3 men taking him out soon.
Roughly the same size.
Is it?
I do think they've put gel on his hair.
Oh, do they? Well, look good playing.
It looks a bit spiky.
Any advice for Henry?
Hold it and hold it tight.
Right.
Because there's severe fines when the youngest Lion is without Bill. So Bill needs protection. And if he strays away from it for too long, there's some mean old guys who like to kidnap it, and the fines will be significant.
Amazing. And finally, I think I'm right in saying 500,000 tickets sold for the games, 50,000 fans going out. I mean, the travelling circus is assembling. Just a word on the challenge, the opportunity, and for someone like you who has been there and done it in almost every capacity, the chance to lift the trophy. I know we'd probably go a week at a time, etc. But do you dream of what might be?
I just go back to the opportunity. Like, this is an incredible opportunity for all the players. It's an incredible opportunity for us to achieve something that we would genuinely remember for the rest of our lives. It's an opportunity for us to create a memory, create a bond amongst ourselves that will remain tight forever. And again, speaking to some of the captains last night, they were talking about, this person, I've met this person. Then I didn't speak to them for 20 years, but then we had a reunion, and it was like I just got off the bus. Like, we have the opportunity to create something extremely special. We have the opportunity to not only inspire a country, but the whole British and Irish region, which is a rare opportunity. So my plea to myself and to the whole squad and the staff is, let's make the most of it. Let's go out there and get it. Let's enjoy every moment. Let's create something that is going to live with us for the rest of our lives.
Oh, you've been there and done it. I'm tearing up in the stands. We're all in behind you. Well done, you. What a very, very special day. It's thoroughly deserved. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch, Maro. Enjoy all that comes your way. You've got another 4,000 media interviews to do, so thank you for swinging by.
Thank you.
We'll catch you a bit later on. The British and Irish Lions captain for 2025. You can see why he's captain.
He speaks well, doesn't
he?
Your eyes. Yeah, well, actually, nowadays, since probably the 97 Lions tour, we're used to seeing behind-the-scenes footage. Yeah. And Maro's never a shouter and a hollerer, but what when you speak softly like that, sometimes it really works, particularly if you've got other people around you that do the G'ing up. But when you have to sort of crane in and listen a little bit, it just becomes a little bit. It's not like white noise in the background, is it?
Yeah.
And as I said, I think the Lions captaincy is different to everything else. He is a supreme politician. He will get dragged all over the place on that tour, and that's part of it. People like, for example, someone like Owen Farrell that doesn't really particularly enjoy the pageantry and the
trying
media
to think of your old teammate as well.
Well, Jono, but he's going to be wanting to concentrate on the rugby, and someone will be saying, "Oh, we've got to go down to the British Embassy and do a little thing there," or we're going to go on a school visit. But most of the squad that gets spread around, but the captain has to do pretty much everything, and you sort of get the impression that he'll be able to cope with that pretty well. Yeah,
it looks very, very comfortable. It looks very good in red as well. I think we got to 10s. Marcus Smith, Finn Russell. We mentioned Owen Farrell, Sam Prendergast and Jack Crowley, I think, when Maro came in. But, I mean, Finn Russell, most people would say at the moment with the experience has got it. But
yeah, absolutely. I think I would think it's between Finn Russell in number 1 place and Finn Smith in number 2 place. Yeah. But I think that's genuinely one of those positions where there's still there's a selection on tour for that. Yeah. And
do we hope there's an early cup of coffee between Johnny Sexton and Finn Russell? The media sort of lit the fire under that one a little bit. I imagine it's going to get.
Yeah, look, I just don't. I don't think it's a big deal at all. I think they're both uber professional, and now Johnny's not a player. Yeah. Everything changes. Yeah. When it's not a rival of yours on the pitch. I remember Martin Johnson, saying he hated Fabian Palouse all throughout his career. Hated him with a passion. And then he did some event after they retired. He's like, he's actually one of the nicest players I've ever met. And it's as soon as you take away that rivalry, everything changes. And I think Finn will probably want to tap into, or Finn Russell, certainly Finn Smith, will want to tap into Johnny Sexton because he was a different sort of 10 to what those guys are. And what's interesting is you've got 3 very similar 10s.
Yes.
In terms of the attacking styles. So you're thinking the Lions are going to go out and give it a lash.
And actually Johnny's made his piece, hasn't he, with Ronan O'Gara in the past. I think those two have gone on very well. I'm sure it'll be buried and all for the benefit of the Lions before too long. In the centres, Bundy Aki of Ireland, Hugh Jones of Scotland, Gary Ringrose of Ireland and Sione Tuapolotu of Scotland, which I suppose shines a light on Robbie Henshaw. Fraser Dingwall was a late sort of runner potentially, Henry Slade, Tom Jordan. But I think based on Six Nations form, you can see why we've ended up with the 4 you've got.
Yeah, and particularly if you were going to go with just 4, like you could have spread that out, but then you've got Elliot Daly
and Tommy Freeman possibly,
and Tommy Freeman that can come in. So yeah, look, I think again, I think you've got 2 partnerships there that. Whichever one plays, you're going to play the same style of rugby. Right. So,
do you stick with partnerships, or do you try potentially Bundy Aki?
No, I think they will try different. He obviously they know, or particularly Owen Farrell knows. Sorry, Owen Farrell. Yeah. Andy Farrell knows what Bundy Aki and Gary Ringrose can do together. Yeah. So that means that when you're swapping things around, you don't have to do. And obviously Hugh Jones they've seen and Tui Polotto. So, but equally having guys that know each other inside out, that might come into the selection decision towards the test. So if you're hawing on your outside centre, but you've decided that Tui Polotto is going to be your inside centre, it might be the guy that he's used to playing with, a little bit like the 9s and 10s in that scenario.
And then the back 3, Elliot Daly, as we've touched on, Tommy Freeman, who is on a hot streak right now, Mac Hansen of Ireland, Hugo Keenan, Blair Kinghorn, I think I'm right saying is the only French-based player, James Lowe and Duhan van der Merwe. So no Darcy Graham, Manny Fay were both perhaps the colours. I actually did something with Elliot Daly, I think in September for the Lions. And I said, hopes? And he said, absolutely, I'm done, I'm gone. And then suddenly, big game changer off the bench against France, solid in Wales, versatility, third tour.
I talked about Lions cycles before. Yes. Now, Elliot Daly's a great player, great history. Pedigree. But he has timed every Lions tour. So, New Zealand, he was one of the stars of that tour, wasn't he? And then again, maybe sort of not quite at that height, not far off, but is he going to go on the next Lions tour and then he just starts to peak again at the right time? And he's been outstanding the back end of this season. his versatility is huge. His experience, obviously, of 3 tours is worth its weight in gold.
Long range boot as well.
That's huge as well. But that ability to slot into any one of a position, is a godsend, and a good bloke as well. That's when you know that people are good tourists.
Yep.
That makes a dramatic difference.
So in terms of the breakdown, again, I'm sure you'll be seeing this all over social media. 15 from Ireland, 13 from England, 8 from Scotland, and 2 from Wales. That probably is a fair representation, isn't it? You wouldn't complain about that too much. No. Okay.
I think it's it's spot on. Interestingly, is it
11 from Leinster?
11 from Leinster.
Yeah. Well done, the boys in blue.
Yeah.
The question I was going to ask you mentioned Elliot Daly as a good tourist. There are some big old characters. That's going to be a noisy tour bus. When you think about some of the characters, Ellis Genge is going to make. A lot of them have also captained their clubs and countries as well. Do you like the sort of? There's a lot of chest out, and let's get into it, isn't there? Oh, you would expect that, I presume, but
there is. But what's great for a lot of these guys, as I said, there's quite a few that have never been on a Lions tour before.
Yeah,
is those newfound friendships that you didn't necessarily. Who would have put these 2 guys together? But now they're best mates on tour. Get into a room together and suddenly, you've got these totally people that you would think would be completely alien and not friends at all suddenly become best mates, and that's one of the beauties of this whole concept. Is enemies, throw them together, best of mates, and then back to being enemies. But actually, if you're at the bottom of a ruck in a Six Nations game, there's a little bit of a smile and a smirk when you try and cheap shot one of them.
If you say so, I believe you. Just in terms of how you, and we'll hopefully have a chat with Andy. I know there's a lot of media requirements of him, but would you see him say, right, I've seen Australia, I'm going to build a plan and put players into the plan? Am I looking at the best players and I'm going to work out a plan for them? Which
I
comes
into
first?
It before, and I genuinely asked him that question.
Oh, did you?
Because he said part of keeping it quiet was he didn't make the decision until he needed to make the decision. So it wasn't out there. It wasn't like So he said it's literally last night the people that were putting on the event, the social media staff were like, "Can you tell us who it is so we can prepare the pictures for the event?"
Maybe.
And he went, "Well, there you go, that's it." But he said it was still quite fluid up until that point. So he said it's a bit of both. You sort of have an idea, but it's then only once you've got the players in place that you can go, right, this is how we're going to play.
Yeah.
But it's right, you can't. I think that's the right way to go. We've seen coaches in rugby, particularly when people move clubs and they try and play the same way at a club, and no one can understand. Oh, he was so successful there.
Yeah.
Particularly guys that are coaching in New Zealand, they come up to Europe, and it's not the same players. You haven't got the same tools to work with. So, the best example of that is actually Ronan O'Gara, who has been, obviously Munster stalwart. They play a certain way. He went down to the Crusaders that play a totally different way, and he coached there. Racing, that was a certain style, and then now he's at La Rochelle, that's totally different to that. So you have to coach with the best tools that you've got for the job. And I think now it's announced he can properly build on that with his coaching staff.
What do you think? I don't know whether Australia will give to whose, but what do you think the Wallaby fans will make of this squad? Does it send a statement?
Well, I don't think you're not sitting there going, well, this is the most fearsome bunch of individuals you've ever seen.
Yeah.
But it's never about that with the Lions. It's about how well they gel and a few stars that can light the touch paper. I mentioned Jason Robinson before, but it's how competitive a team are they going to be able to put together. And I think, so the fans might not be overly concerned having seen this, but I think Joe Schmidt will be going, well, yeah, that's a nice little toolbox to work with. I think particularly there'll still be a bit of uncertainty because there will be an expectation that the Lions will play Northern Hemisphere up your jumper rugby, and whatever happens in the world, it takes a while for it to actually cotton on. So the game has changed beyond all recognition in the last couple of years, particularly up here in Europe. You look at that semi-finals in Europe never used to be open and expansive. You got Northampton winning the Premiership, playing throw about rugby, Leinster playing their way. Back in Australia, they're still saying, it's 9-man rugby up or 10-man rugby up in the Northern Hemisphere. I think they'll get a shock, particularly with the 10s that we've picked.
Okay, fantastic. You've mentioned a couple of times about how the squad gels. You were obviously part of the best England team we've ever had, but you were part of a Lions squad that took a big old bus down to New Zealand. Just the sort of the pitfalls and the watch-outs and the... do you have any concerns about the professionalism of the squad picked here? What is the key, based on what you experienced, to getting it right in Australia?
So I think Clive thought that it would be a defining moment for the Lions, his tour, because it would professionalise everything and make it the most professional Lions tour there's ever been, which is what he tried to do in 2003 and was very successful. I think with hindsight, Clive would admit that, and it's easy to say with hindsight, that doesn't work for the Lions. You haven't got time to put a 2-year programme in 6 weeks to get it right. You have to treat it very differently, and it's a throwback to the amateur era of how can we bond a team quicker than ever before. And if you want a coach to do that, Andy Farrell is absolutely the person in my mind that he is universally liked, universally respected, and he has an aura about him that when he walks into the room, you go, God, yeah, I want to follow this bloke, and that's proven by the results. He's
bigging you up now, talking about the aura as he walks into the room.
He's absolutely rubbish.
Well done. Well, okay. we might be chatting with you in a minute. You've got another 4,000 to do. Oh, okay, perfect. Well, we won't join you for that. We'll hopefully speak to you a little bit later on. When I did the coach's announcement.
Good, wasn't it?
We did the coach's announcement, which was about a month ago, or whatever it was. And I walked in to say hello to everyone before, and there's Annie and his wife fronts getting kit out. I was like, wow. I'll see you a little bit later on. We'll let you do what you do. The thing I was going to ask you before popped on social media, I can tell you. What I was going to say though is just in terms of the tour itself and how the tour is built. In Super Rugby, the Australian sides have definitely pulled their socks up. But what would you see? Everybody will get a chance, but what would you see as, how much of a test are they going to get? How much of a test do they want? Argentina will obviously make a real nuisance of themselves in Dublin. Proper hit out to start.
They are a really well drilled side playing good rugby, and you're throwing a team together, not necessarily with all your players available. So, and no one wants to start with a loss. The Super Rugby, they are obviously all used to playing together. It's not like you're going in fresh against them. I think the challenge again, and we spoke about Australia and how they want to play and the team he's picked and how the Lions might want to play. The players that are running the show can't get carried away in a game against Super Rugby teams and it just go. Because not only does that risk you playing badly and losing a game against one of the midweek teams or the warm-up games, but equally, regardless of how you think Australia play, Test match rugby is very different. So you want to make sure that you're playing a style that suits the end game rather than just getting carried away.
And can you put that into words as to what that difference is? Actually, we'll come back to that. The boss is in the building. Well done.
Apparently you
washed your hands.
Yeah.
I thought you were taking the paper in there. I managed you back out already. Well done.
You guys are one of the last. And
is it?
It's when you're doing these type of days, you've got to try and stay on point. No more so a word is true than with you guys. Yeah.
The egg is sliding off the plate.
Anyway, let's see how we go.
Well done. Headline the O2 on a Wednesday lunchtime. That's not bad for a boy from Wigan. How much did you enjoy that?
Next year, the big stage.
Is it? We're going global.
No, well,
you're quite a good crooner, aren't you?
It was the first time.
Ashcroft?
Yeah, Richard Ashcroft.
Is that what it is? Wow. Which one?
What?
Your Richard Ashcroft song?
Oh no, just
all of them.
Oh, so sorry. Beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Got you. Lucky Man. That'd be a good one, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
What do you make of today?
I suppose everyone was optimistic, didn't quite know how it was going to go, etc. But I think it was quite. It was
good.
Yeah. It was quite real, wasn't it?
That's we were as two old hat. Well, it was energetic. It was interesting. It was fun.
Yeah.
Thought the crowd was fantastic.
Yeah.
Does it sort of swell the excitement levels for you? Was just got to tick it off and move on.
Yeah, 100%. glad that it's done. It's out there. We're talking about rugby. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm getting excited now about a couple of weeks' time when we meet up for the first time as a squad, and we all start getting excited together rather than just me on my computer at home.
Why are you talking about
trying
excitement?
to find some mates?
Well, why are you talking about excitement? So there must be players that, as Alan coach, when you're coaching the Six Nations, you go, yeah, I wish he was in my team. You now get that. You can pick people from the team.
It's good fancy football.
Is there anyone that you've really been looking forward to working with?
Well, hopefully all of them. I was all to pick them.
Is the people that you go...
testing you now.
Yeah, I want to see what this
We haven't yet published the
really
Lions Media
course.
Handbook.
And you know what, Bennett, like, you know, I mean, it's a small enough place, the British and Irish Isles, like, you know. So we all do think we know, but we don't know until we know. We don't... Like, I've got around and try to do as much homework as I possibly can to understand everyone that's in the debate, to do everyone justice, really, but I don't think you ever quite get there until you actually experience it. But I try my best to get as close as, you know. So there are. I mean, how could you not get excited about working with all of those 38?
There was an impressive ring of steel actually around the announcement. There was no leaks. There was no sort of. For most people, the first time they saw it was when it went live. When did the ink dry on your selection? Were there any
3 o'clock yesterday.
Okay.
And this wasn't to make sure that there was no leaks. I just think it's the right way to do things, to take things down to the wire, because over the last couple of months there's been huge debates, and it's been tough to get from a certain number down to whatever. Say we started at 75 to get down to 55. That was unbelievably tough, you know. But to get down to the final number, I stayed open-minded enough, because we met last week and debated this till the cows come home, as you can imagine. But allowing space and time for people to think on their own and go through different permutations, etc. And then when it really gets to it, because time is pushing you, then you start really getting to the point. So the point that I'm making is, I didn't know whether it was going to pick 42 or 36. We ended up with 38 in the end. But because of all those conversations, because of leaving a bit of time, because of allowing it to go down to the last second, it allows you to get to where you want to get to.
What were your emotions last weekend, particularly watching that Leinster-Northampton game? Because obviously you got a vested interest in the Leinster players because of your normal day job, but equally that throws a bit of a cat amongst the pigeons for. Did it change any of your selection thoughts, or were you excited that a team could go to with a load of guys that you might have included and go and produce a performance?
Yeah, but you've got to know the reality of it. I mean, I'm obviously going to the game because I want to watch what's happening live. But I mean, if you went back a couple of weeks ago or a couple of weeks before that, then Leinster are putting 70 points and 60 points on the people in the tops in the last 16 and the quarter final. So you've got to really allow time to take the emotion completely out of it and see it for what it is. And of course everyone talks about form as far as selection is concerned, but that's just part of the mix, isn't it? Like, you know, experience, who's been there and done that, who can deal with the type of pressure, the schedule of what's around the corner, that it all gets thrown into the pot.
Yeah. Maro's captain, looks the part, doesn't he?
Looks the part.
Slow boxes walk on as well.
In rehearsal they said to him, Maro, we want you to do a slow walk. I said, believe me, there is no problem with that.
Melt the crowd.
I was saying to Ian on stage, he's taking the mick now. Come on, hurry up.
He's milking it. Stop milking it.
It was a great walk.
Just tell. I mean, obviously you've worked with him 2013, 2017.
No,
2017.
2017.
And I'm sure numerous other occasions as well. But just instant. You know the guy anyway. But how much are you looking forward to what he will bring?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be able to mix it all sorts of ways as a Lions captain, because he throws up everything that you've probably not even thought that you could imagine, you know. So you need a certain type of character to be able to roll with the punches and deal with that, and he's a calm, calculated type character. But what I've been impressed with more than anything since he's had the responsibility of captain. It's been a long time coming. Is that his performances have been through the roof because of that, and that doesn't always happen. Sometimes people shrink in the responsibility. So that's first and foremost, because you cannot shout from the rooftops if you're not prepared to do it yourself. And then the feel he's got as a person, calm-natured, is inviting for others to be able to be themselves as well. So I'm sure that everyone will look up to him.
Part of the job is binding that team together as quickly as possible, and making it enjoyable. There's been a couple of Lions tours where people have come back and said that wasn't the most enjoyable tour. There's been
Which
a couple.
Which ones was them? Was I on any of them?
But there's been other ones where people have said, "God, that's how it should be."
Yeah.
Now, have you planned a strategy for that? Have you got days where this is the fun day, or?
Of course, yeah. But I also think going with the flow and ad-libbing, and I like to change my mind quite a bit just to freshen it up. I think it gets monotonous when it's just a simple routine. Just going with the flow and not being too prescriptive as far as the crack's concerned. But that'll come because the lads they bond instantly. We'll meet in a couple of weeks' time. You'll see it straight from the start, because all they're trying to do is get respect of each other straight from day one. And one of the ways to get respect as well is to show that you're a good person first and foremost, and you're able to give yourself to the team. So that happens instantly.
Is there a selection decision on any? I don't want you to name names, obviously, but if you know that someone's going to be a good tourist, does that come into part?
Massively. I mean, one of my biggest things in any team that I'm involved, if you're not a team player, if you're not a good teammate, the environment should kick you out. Never mind me. So that's the way that it should be. It's only about the team. That's why we play a team sport. That's why we're able to try and aim higher than any individual's aspirations, because everyone gives themselves to the team. And if you can't do that, then the team should deal with that.
What does the next few weeks look like? When do you get everybody in? You presume there's a sort of a stash day and photographs and that sort of thing. But when does
all the admin stuff in a couple of weeks' time?
Yeah.
And then, I've been asked the question many a times today, is it fingers crossed then until you play against Argentina or get on the plane the next day? It's not. I want to see a reaction. Obviously, you're going to get a reaction for the people who are disappointed, and that's exactly what we want. We want to see the fight, but we also want to see the fight and the respect grow of the lads that have played, because you want the next 5 or 6 weeks for them to get themselves ready for something special, so that they can be at the best when it really matters. It's not just going to happen, so there's a bit of space and time for them to realise that and get stuck in.
2 quick questions to finish. It's a heck of a squad. But obviously, I think if you said you were thinking about 70, you've probably got another 32 that aren't there. Will you keep in touch with those people? Will you put a plan? It's a long way, isn't it, Australia? We've had geography 6s and 7s in the past, etc. Will those that aren't on the plane initially, but you might know and be told to keep
listen,
I'm
doing the rounds today, and I'm sending the message there that, for everyone that's disappointed today, the history shows that that's not the fact. That it's today and over. It's stay positive, stay strong, stay in good form, etc. And the history shows that stuff's going to happen. Stuff's going to happen. So be ready, and let's see where it takes you.
History also shows it's been a while since obviously there was 2013, 2017, the drawn series, etc. But does it feel like this is time to write a very positive chapter for the Lions? Is that?
Well, I got told today that back-to-back tours as in the same country. I didn't know that, but that's obviously special within itself. 13 and 25. If that can happen, surely that's worth fighting for. Yeah. I was lucky enough to be on the 13 tour. It was a hell of a tour.
Yeah.
But all the interest and just by being over there in Australia, seeing the venues for this tour, the facilities, the fan zones, everything that's going to happen, knowing the plan, it blows 13 out the water, So if we're able to perform and be successful and be lucky enough to be able to do that, then wow, we're in for a hell of a ride.
Certainly is that. 500,000 tickets sold, apparently. I heard a bit earlier on.
That's what I've heard, yeah.
50,000 coming over.
350,000 on the last one, and it was
unreal.
It was a heck of a tour.
I think that's one of the, having gone there, that's one of the biggest things that
yes,
you think you know what's coming. So all the youngsters that haven't been on a tour before, you go down there and suddenly you're seeing all this red, and then particularly as an Englishman, people that aren't usually very nice to you with different accents, the Scots, the Welsh, suddenly they're throwing their arms around you, and you can just feel the will of that travelling army of red.
It epitomises everything that you would hope rugby would always be about, like, you know.
Yeah. Been a very special day today. Let's hope for a few more over the next few months. One with the coach.
Much.
Good on you, Andy.
Cheers,
really nice of you to pop in. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks.
And actually, that is a really interesting point in which to. Well, good on you. It's an interesting point in which to sort of sum up. Really, is that you have World Cup squad selections, etc. And there's a stone in the shoe for some. There are inevitably going to be some grumble somewhere, but the tide behind this squad now, behind Maro as captain, and behind he's such an easy man to follow. It feels like a full sail heading down there, doesn't it?
Actually, probably. So I went down in 2017, doing some media and stuff. And I'd almost forgotten, maybe as a player you're slightly cosseted away from it and stuff, but I was stunned at how good a trip it is, how invested everyone, that people have spent their life savings to go on this trip. It means so much more because of that, the amount they've put into it, and it's this sort of like coming together that it's just, I'll never, Jono told me about 2001 when they ran out for the warm-up. They literally, there were people freezing, like because the whole stadium was red.
Game.
The whole stadium was red, and as a rugby player, particularly playing at Twickenham where everyone's got their Barber jackets on or whatever, you're not used to that, and it's an incredible feeling. It lifts you as a player, and look, it's such a special thing to be a part of. I'm so jealous of the guys that have been named today. Because what an experience.
Take your boots. You never know. Andy Nicol. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There have been one or two others actually as well over the years who sort of have been pulled in, haven't they? Well, take your boots. You never know, Ben. You never know. Going up at the final line out, the final test. And I suppose that sort of leads us on to MCG. We haven't spoken about. I mean, it's 100,000. It's going to be incredible. But just as an expectation for this touring side now heading down to Australia, 18 months ago everyone said it's going to be an absolute rollover as far as the Lions are concerned. The Wallabies are definitely on the back. We saw that at Twickenham. We've seen what they're doing in Super Rugby. Are we expecting a test series that not only sort of reinvigorates Australian rugby, and we're seeing that with the ticket numbers, but also potentially just reaffirms the love of the Lions after a tour 4 years ago that was tough to watch?
Like, the eyes of the world are always on the Lions. Even the countries that you're not touring to down in the Southern Hemisphere will be wanting to part. That's why it's so important to the nations you travel. Like, you go there every 12 years. So the welcome you receive is unbelievable because they are desperate for the Lions to come into town. So it's phenomenal. But it's just all the eyeballs of the world on this. It's such a big showcase for rugby, and I don't think the Wallabies will be a walkover. There's the Joe Schmidt factor, which is
and of
massive.
course they know each other so well, don't they?
Know each other well. He knows the system that Andy inherited. So, and Joe Schmidt's now committed to sort of staying on past when he steps down to help the transition through, which helps with the players on that side. It's the biggest sporting event in the calendar. It'll roll into town, and it'll be absolutely epic.
Brilliant. You've teed that up very. You're down there, aren't you? You're doing TalkSport?
Yeah, doing the 3 tests.
There's going to be a few down there, I think. And if you are going, enjoy the ride. If you're not, I'm sure it's not too late. Ben, thank you very much indeed for joining us. We will wrap things up there, and we will say well done to all those who've been selected. Some brilliant videos online, I'm sure, and more to come as well for all those who have been picked to travel with Andy Farrell and the 2025 British and Irish Lions. You may have seen in the Lions production that Howden have commissioned the artist Nelly, who is out painting a mural of the whole squad at the Whitechapel Icon building in Shoreditch. And if you're in London, do go down and check that out. That is it from us for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you to Ben as well. And that is it as far as events here at the O2 are concerned. Well done, the Lions. It's been a bit rock star today, and I think rugby needs a bit more of that. Well done to Howden as well. Thank you for your support today as proud principal partner of the British and Irish Lions, who have helped us bring you this show. Whether it's ensuring your local rugby club, the important things at home, or safeguarding your business from cybersecurity to climate risk and everything in between. When Howden has you covered, you can achieve great things. If you have enjoyed the show, please do give us a little like, do subscribe and leave us a comment with your thoughts on the Lions squad. This has been a Folding Pocket and Whisper collaboration. It's been produced by Tom Edwards. Well done once again to all those who've been selected. All in behind Maro Itoje. Next stop, Australia. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now. Well done, mate. Slick as. Thank you, thank you, thank you.